Okay, all due respect to Pete Fox and the sports update you just heard here. Where's the Daytona 500 there? I mean, obviously, national sportscaster, you know. And to be brutally honest with you, that was a sports update in which race was and I'm Marky's monologue, by the way, to kick off this show is going to touch on that. But there's positives that you could talk about with the Daytona 500. Bubba Wallace finishing second. And instead, I mean, this is almost the most biased cultural report. We now look at things in this fashion now on even a 2-minute sportscast. Adam Silver giving the fans what they want. Why, they'll televise the schoolyard draft or what. You know what? I got to tell you the truth. I didn't watch the NBA All-Star Game. I tried to listen to about 2 minutes of Fergie, or about 2 seconds of Fergie giving the national anthem. A long time ago, NBA had no appeal to me. None. And a lot of it is that, you know, Adam giving the fans what they want. What about Eastern and Western in an All-Star game? What about that? What about, you know, because I didn't know who to root for here. I mean, you want to talk about, you know, empowering the individual, which is a good thing, but do they do it too much in the NBA? And then we go into legitimate story. Let's cover it. But do you see how Fox's, a sports update, some knuckleheads taunting an African-American hockey player in a penalty box or something, they get kicked out, you know. They said that they're saying basketball, which, okay, that's just, yeah. Get those guys out of there, never have them back, obviously. But, do you understand where that sports update was almost like, first of all, no stock car, no NASCAR, and it was an exercise to say, NBA good, NHL bad. I'm Marky Billson, your voice of choice for a new generation of Tri-Cities sports fans. The name of the program is Tri-Cities Sports Now on 1420 NBC Sports Radio Tri-Cities, where we own the Tri-Cities right here with the best guests and hardest-hitting opinions. In the next hour, best guests. You know, I got to be honest with you. I talk about how meaningless regular season college basketball is. But there's a lot more meaning for me in ETSU hosting the Citadel tomorrow as ETSU goes for their second straight NCAA tournament berth. Well, it's not all on the line, but there is a chance actually with a victory against the Citadel coupled with the UNCG loss that would clinch the first seed in the regular season championship of the Southern Conference for ETSU. I wanted to then come out and say that we've got that game all broken down, because in the next hour I'm going to talk to Steve Forbes, and then I'm going to talk to the former Tusculum coach turned Citadel coach, Duggar Bocom. Bocom coming on the show, the former Tusculum coach, former police officer turned basketball coach, had some success at VMI, though he didn't take him to the NCAAs. Some feel there's only so much you can have at VMI. Now he's trying and possibly going to trying to make Citadel relevant in the SoCon. Lost Preston Parks, freshman of the year last year. He quit the team, went on transferring to, last I heard, Tennessee Martin. But still, the Citadel gave ETSU all they could handle in Charleston, and had a last-second shot gone in, then we wouldn't be talking about potentially ETSU clinching on Thursday or Tuesday. The magic number to clinch the SoCon for ETSU is 2. So a ETSU victory and coupled with the UNCG loss, or simply ETSU winning 2 of their last 3 games at home, they're the SoCon champs. They get the number 1 seed in Nashville. But that's not what we talk about today. Today we talk about the fact that there was one racing legend that was created yesterday, and there was another racing legend that, well, I guess we could say went away. And I'm speaking, of course, of the racing legend that went away. Some may say she's not a legend. I disagree. Danica Patrick, and I know she's got the O for 191 collar, but there's more to Danica Patrick, although that is a part of her career. I mean, only winning the one Indy race, but still, there's a lot more to Danica than just, what she did on the track and such. I'm going to get to that in just a few seconds, but also, I really liked Bubba Wallace. I liked his post-game, or I guess I should say post-race. And I think a star was born, not necessarily Austin Dillon, but Bubba Wallace. Now, I do like talking about Danica Patrick. I think NASCAR has the potential for appeal that no other sport could possibly have with Patrick, because spectator sports are largely, a male audience. But I saw Patrick as having the opportunity to have a male and female watch a race together and rooting boy versus girl, which is possible in no other sport, really, competing against each other. Now, unfortunately for Patrick, You've Got to Win, and her swan song, crashing out of the race before the second segment, seemed to be typical of a driver whose career peaked upon winning the Daytona pole about 6 years ago. In fact, Danica Patrick addressed that the ending of this race won't define her career. Well, she did, but I will get to that here in just a second as we go on here. She stressed it would not define the ending of her career.
And, we didn't get to do that in the end today, but like I said, hopefully the whole career will stand for itself a little bit more than just the way that it ended here, too. I hope they remember me as a great driver and that I was a woman and it was really cool to watch and be there for me.
Yeah, I mean, what I take from Danica was just how upfront and honest. I mean, she would not make excuses for her struggles, and I really respected that. I can remember seeing one interviewer, and it was in studio, and Danica looked absolutely gorgeous, and you could tell that the interviewer was smitten with her and was just throwing her softball after softball. And Danica was like, well, I got to win a race here. Let's, before you, put me into the Hall of Fame here, why don't you, we got to win a race. And that's the tragedy of Patrick, because her career on the track is going to be a what might have been. I mean, she had the presence. Do you realize that no celebrity has appeared in more Super Bowl ads than Danica Patrick? She was in 14 Super Bowl ads. I mean, think about that. 14 Super Bowl ads. No other celebrity has appeared in as many. Now that's stardom, even with 0 for 91. Pioneer, she's the first female full-time driver. There have been lots of female drivers before her. But you know what? She inspired me to learn about them. I learned about Sarah Christian in the very first NASCAR race in Charlotte in 1949. The very first NASCAR race had a woman named Sarah Christian in the field. Who knew? Well, I'm sure there are a lot of experts out there who did. And then I started looking at what she did, and I saw her best finish. I was like, I know where that track is. It was in Heidelberg, PA. It's since been torn down. But, it's, wait a minute. They built a shopping center there. I've been to that shopping center. I know, suddenly I had this bond, and that's all because of Danica Patrick inspiring me to learn such history. And now I'm telling it to you, and I'm guessing that there are some in the audience who already knew it and say, yeah, getting on the turnip truck now, Marky? Oh, yeah? Because they've researched it as well. Maybe they even lived through it if they're of the age. But I do think that women drivers could be what promotes NASCAR, and that's the future of NASCAR. I really do believe that. And I think that they can promote the sport like nobody else can. And so now we've got to have Patrick pass the torch, so to speak, to maybe a Natalie Decker, finished 5th in the ARCA race, Haley Deegan, who's, an up-and-comer, just 16 years old, but a lot of people talking about him. I'd like to see Amber Balkin. She's been on the show a couple of times. I like her a lot. Like to see her come on. It does figure to be an exciting time, not just because we ask, okay, who would be the woman that comes next? It's the 17th driver, and hopefully a full-time one. But I do think Bubba Wallace just became a star, even more so than Austin Dillon. By the way, we're going to talk to Jerry Bonkowski tomorrow. Jerry, he had a previous appointment. He's got to take care of his health, obviously, but we'll talk to him tomorrow. And also on Friday, we are going to talk to Jerry Bonkowski, NBCSports.com, about motorsports in general, not just NASCAR, not just Daytona, but he's been covering a lot of stuff, NHRA, really, and what I like about Jerry covering the NHRA, and I know I'm getting off on tangent here, but he's noticing developments in how, say, NHRA is marketing it itself. And he's saying, well, now look at this with NASCAR. Look at this with other kinds of motorsports. And it's really a fun, it's an exciting, he's got a very good perspective, does Jerry here. Anyway, you gotta like how Bubba Wallace drove the race. I mean, he avoided the wrecks. He and Dillon were the only guys who didn't wreck, it seemed. I mean, everybody else, really. And he goes and he finishes second, but it was his post-race demeanor that really won me over. Because first Wallace, they get him out of the track. He's on TV. Hey, let's see what Bubba Wallace has to say. To tell you the truth, I thought Austin Dillon was hamming it up a little too much. I mean, what's he doing? Diving on the line. Get the victory lane. Drink, talk to the interviewer. Let's do that. Anyway, can you imagine? I know it's a different thing, but I was, thinking about Daytona 500s is the 20th anniversary of Dale Earnhardt's win, and the 3-car won it, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But could you imagine? I can remember Michael Waltrip winning the Daytona 500 in 2001, and he should have been the man of the hour. It was his first NASCAR race. I mean, we'd waited. Michael Waltrip, such a likable person, and it all came through for him, so excited. And we're living, and you could only just get the energy from Michael Wallace in his celebration in the winner's circle, except there was is Dale okay? Remember that? Remember when Darrell Waltrip called the race, is Dale okay? And suddenly Michael Waltrip, who should have been... I thought NASCAR has done a great job separating and making sure that Wallace, two-time Daytona 500 winner. But, man, in that 2001, when everyone went, wait a minute, they're taking Dale Earnhardt to the hospital. What's going on here? Hold on, that was in the back of your head. And, again, it should have been Waltrip was the man of the hour, and it wasn't. Eventually, just 2 hours later, then what hit all the... It wasn't Wallace wins his first race. That would only... Or Waltrip, excuse me. Waltrip wins his first race. I've been saying Michael Wallace. The 60 Minutes investigative reporter won the Daytona. Yeah, no, Michael Waltrip. And Bubba Wallace finishing in second here recently. Let's get to that. I thought... can you imagine what I was trying to say about Michael Waltrip in that? Can you imagine if he was doing those dives, how that would have come out when we learned that the ambulance taking probably Earnhardt's lifeless body to the hospital was going on? Can you imagine? And so, that's what, it's great, celebratory and all that. But yeah, what Waltrip did in 2001, and I think he won a lot of fans over. Everybody knew he had no idea what was going on with the Intimidator. But man alive, I mean, can you imagine if there was a real serious wreck and you had Dillon doing all that stuff, diving on the infield lawn and all that? I mean, come on. thankfully that didn't happen. But Bubba Wallace won the post-race interview. And in so many ways, I think Bubba Wallace, I think he became a star, even more so than Austin Dillon. It's his first race as a full-time driver. He finishes second, reminding me not so much of 98, but 79 when Dale Earnhardt, in his first race as a full-time driver, did so well in the Daytona 500. I mean, everybody remembers the fight and Petty winning and all that, but, Earnhardt ran a very good race, and it was, who's this up-and-comer, What I liked about it was that he's got that interview, it's on the spot, and, he says, well, first of all, I want to be, I don't want to say something that'll incriminate me. I don't want to make a comment till I see about how I finished second until I see the replay of the race, right? Okay, great. And then replay is shown to him on the spot. Modern technology, right? Here you go, Bubba. Why don't you see this, Darrell Wallace Jr.? Oh, okay. And then he comes up with that brilliant comment that, and he says, Hamlin, quote, says he cut his tire down. Looks like the same move he made on Blaney in Martinsville. And suddenly, confidence taking command, Wallace. The only guy who's going to be upset about that are the diehard Dillon fans. And how many are there really? I mean, Bubba Wallace won the post-race with that comment, and then goes in. Not only do I love that candidness, but he goes in afterwards and he starts, referring, driving for Richard Petty Racing, calls him consistently the King. That great story, King told me, first rule of racing is don't wreck the car. And that is just, not only is it respectful because he's always calling Richard Petty the King, but it's humorous. And something, King Richard Petty really has not been a factor in NASCAR for 35 years. You heard me. Not since he won his 200th race in 83. Have you really I've always thought, Petty as being greatest driver ever, maybe. But he's a figure of the 70s and the 60s. Post-83, Petty's been on the show, by the way, but he's been a figurehead, if you will. He's been an ambassador of racing, but other than that, the race team is underfunded. He was on the circuit almost as a courtesy for 7 years. I remember his last race. He's going to do one last lap, and, I remembered this when Danica Patrick wrecked out of the race. Richard Petty, hey, let's try to get that car with no fenders going again, so in his last race he can drive around the track one last time. Really? But now here's Bubba Wallace improving the legacy of Richard. He's now got a chance to make Richard Petty a winner again. Bubba Wallace, this guy is going to be a star. And if Wallace does become a winner, this is a match made in heaven. This is, Rocky Balboa and Apollo Creed's son. I mean, this is gonna be big. Hank Aaron even sent wishes of support to Bubba Wallace before the race. Now, my only fear is how the subject of Wallace's race will be played out. I'd like to see it, he's a man. I mean, he's just like Austin Dillon, just like you, just like me. I mean, what's the big deal? But I can see where critics will ask why it's taken NASCAR so many years to have an African-American driver, since Wendell Scott in the early 70s, and that's a legitimate question, by the way. But then they would use Wallace's success to bring down NASCAR rather than promote it. And that's disturbing. However, I think that, again, Petty is the best filter of that. And for that matter, Danica Patrick, there weren't a whole lot. Well, why no full-time female racing questions when Danica Patrick was on the NASCAR circuit? So we'll see how this plays out. But it's funny, though, Wallace could get away with his emotions driving him to tears in the post-race press conference. And Patrick, really, can you imagine if she was brought to tears with her final race? Thankfully, she wasn't, but there would be critics that would call her soft. So it's funny that Bubba could go into tears, but Danica couldn't. But regardless, the departure of Patrick paves the way for the new stardom of Wallace. And perhaps that shows the potential that only NASCAR can have. Okay, I got some criticisms of the sport. Sure, I'll get on that. Yeah. But this can be a very exciting time in NASCAR racing. And I'll tell you this much. Maybe there were too many crashes, but we're talking about the race right now. We're talking about the people that ran. Even without a Little E in the lineup, even without a Jeff Gordon, even without a Tony Stewart, there was a way that with the numbers, with the 3 and 43 finishing 1 and 2, that suddenly you had this legacy, if you will, being recognized in the race. We're talking about the race. I'm not spending this morning like I did last year, calling up the Wall Street Journal writer and asking him, so how come NASCAR is down? How come no one's what? We're talking about the race. We're talking about the people. We're talking about the numbers. We're talking about the Camaro. This is good. This is very good. We're not talking about the death of NASCAR. We will talk about new rules in baseball to improve the pace of play and continue to talk Daytona 500. Your phone calls 743-6124, 743-6124. It's Tri-City Sports Now.